Welcome everybody to episode 81 of DorkTunes. So this is kind of a strange episode because my current guest, he is the first person to be on the show not once, not twice, but three times. And it's always an honor to speak with him. So I think I'll get him just to introduce himself, really.
Thank you, Pete. I'm Bille. I'm a composer and sound designer for video games, working with games like Fee and Ghost Giant, and most recently Wavetale.
Yes, Wavetale just released recently, didn't it?
Yeah, 12th-ish of December, so just a few weeks back. And the soundtrack was released just that same week. So it's all very new.
And coming out on vinyl.
Might be, yes. Who knows?
It could be so good.
Yeah.
So how long has Wavetale kind of been in development?
That's a good question. For a long time, actually. I remember some early talks and meetings that the company has changed office twice since, so it's a couple of years. I don't actually remember the year, but probably it was like straight after Ghost Giant was released in 2018, so it's like 5 years. But first time it was very much on a prototype level, like one or two people working on it, just trying out like the wave physics and getting that kind of stuff to work, I think. And then it was like active full development was maybe a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. But a pretty long pre-production before that.
Yeah, so you've been kind of involved from the very beginning.
Well, in a way, yeah, I was involved in the very beginning, and then I was out for a while, and they had another idea of a composer, but that didn't work out. So then I got back on it again, and I was in for about a year, the last year of production.
Yeah, and did you find that kind of difficult because you were at the beginning, and then someone else took over, and then you took over again? Did you find that kind of jarring in any way, or?
I think it was pretty. I mean, I don't think I had the time in the beginning to do it, so it was like no bad, like no hard feelings that they wouldn't want to try it with something else. But then when that didn't work out, it's a pretty good spot for me to just go in and do whatever I want to do, because they sort of have no choice.
And they know you, so they're comfortable with you as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet. I don't know if it's fifth game we're doing together or something like that. So
sixth, wow.
Yeah, fifth or sixth. Let's see. Stick It to the Man.
Yeah.
Zombie Vikings, Fear, Ghost Giant, and Wavetale. Yeah.
Ghost Giant, by the way, is one of my favorites. I think absolutely wonderful.
Wow.
And
thank you so much.
I have the soundtrack on vinyl, and I've got the face soundtrack as well.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah, Ghost Giant is very special because it's also it's most of it is like my own music that I did anyway, not specifically for the project. So it's like one of the most personal soundtracks, I think. But then it was like developed to work in the game, and there's more tracks that I added afterwards. But the core sort of is very personal.
And do you find that more difficult, that you're giving kind of your personal stuff to something that's going to be released like Ghost Giant? Or was it easier in a way?
I mean, in one way it was very easy because the music already existed, and it was such a great match. I think it was because when I saw the first prototype, I always had the idea that this stuff might work actually, and they also really liked it. And the music was one of the first things that was sort of decided for the game. Was okay, we're going to use this music and this art style. So the music was like there for the whole development. So it was sort of it was like with them from the beginning. So in a way, it might have like I'm not saying like the music determined the rest of the production, but it was there. So it was sort of a part of the core.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the music can have an effect on the game, and you know, the way it goes and the direction and stuff like that. Absolutely. You know, because I released a game that I worked on, a game that I worked on was released last year.
Mhm.
The Magnificent Truffle Pigs.
Ah,
And it was lovely, but kind of developing that and kind of, was really interesting because obviously I had to read the script, and get to know the characters, get to know the motivations,
mm,
kind of, and then kind of put some playlists and music together that kind of reflected them, but then also a playlist that reflected the game itself, because
mm,
you can't forget about that at the core of things. And kind of, I've gone back a few times and listened to them, and they are all so different, you know,
mm.
completely different. And in the end, um, because of the people that I put forward, Kevin Penkin was actually chosen to do the soundtrack.
Okay,
And
wow.
Kevin is phenomenal. He did the soundtrack to Florence, which earned him a BAFTA
Mm.
nomination. You know,
Oh yeah, wow, yeah.
and I don't, have you ever played Florence?
I don't. I really. I'm taking notes right now.
It's gorgeous. You can play it on your phone, Apple, Android, or you can play it on your tablet, or you can play it.
Oh wait, Flora, is it this like short
Yes, like a short little kind of vignette story
this
thing.
yeah visual novel thing with
Yeah,
like a couple meeting and oh yeah, I
yeah,
played that. I
yeah. It's
really
lovely,
really
isn't it?
liked it. Really love the
Mhm.
mechanics.
Yeah.
'Cause it's rare that like a game is so much like what you do
Mhm.
like in the game is what the game is about. Sort of you
Yeah.
really and there was a nice like interpretation of what sort of dating is and also their communication and how
Yeah.
to that was really
It does.
really
It was really
yeah
clever, and I think.
yeah and clever in like a sort of emotional way or
Mm,
really yeah that was a nice game. Hmm.
and it's a really beautiful soundtrack as well.
Yeah yeah
You know?
yeah I haven't listened to the soundtrack like specifically like afterwards but I would want to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
And so, how did you find, obviously, because you've worked with the guys on so many projects before, how was the working on Wavetale this time? Was it completely different? Did you have kind of more stuff to your arsenal? So you had, everything was bigger and better rather
Mm.
than smaller and less.
Yeah, a bit like that, bigger and better. And we had like more advanced tools for implementation in game. We had
Hmm.
this third-party engine, which allows for more complex, like dynamic, adaptive music stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I think it might also have been like just in terms of like scope, the biggest project I've done with them.
Hmm.
Like minutes of music, sort of.
And
But it
how?
was also sorry, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, looking at it, it's like just comes in just over an hour of
Yeah,
music on the soundtrack,
yeah.
which is
But it's also
extraordinary.
interesting. The soundtrack is sort of like an after construction, just also because of the this adaptive music thing we did. There is like no
Hmm.
looping audio file. Like there's like any tracks in the game that has a beginning and an end. It's just like a big pile
Loop.
of loops and segments, and so like doing like an soundtrack album of that was a work of its own to sort
Mm.
of make them make sense as songs. So and a lot of stuff was cut out also to make the soundtrack make sense on its own, sort of.
Yeah. And do you find
Yeah,
that difficult when you're cutting tracks?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much things that you hear in the game that I think is very, very nice and
Mm.
very lovely, especially with the more like low key things that happen when you like surf out on a small island somewhere like off the main road, sort of.
Yeah.
Um, but it wouldn't make sense to have like 5 versions of every song in the soundtrack. That would be a lousy soundtrack. So sort of had to make some hard choices there. But I think in the end it worked out really well.
Mm.
It was the same thing for Fear, and also when we did the vinyl for Fear, I mean, we had to cut more things out to make it fit on
Yeah.
a vinyl.
Because you
And I
need to
sort
fit
of
it.
actually like the vinyl edition better because it's sort of a more well curated version,
Yeah.
sort of with just
Um,
the best parts.
so a bit more succinct.
Yeah, yeah. But about
Mm.
the Wavetale production, it was also, I mean, since I've been doing this for a couple of times with them now, I sort of feel like more confident and more able to
Mm.
like try my ideas, I think, can be experimental. And I also had a really long, I was sort of trying out a newish like approach, I think,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is very close to what you talked about with like spending time in identifying and understanding the sort of core values and aesthetics and motivations and all of those. So I spent a lot of time in that, and like writing text like about what the characters might feel in different situations, and really going deep into that thing before I actually made any music. I was like sitting on the piano playing sometimes, but not really with an intention of actually composing, more like a way of sort of hanging out with the project, and had all of these ideas in the back of my mind. And then eventually stuff started to
Kind of
come into place.
evolve. Yeah, I mean, it's funny you said that, because I was just talking to Christian Negus about this, and John Hillman, who did the soundtrack for That Dragon Cancer, he said something similar before, where he said that he had tracks for the game itself, and then he sat down at the piano one night, and just this whole thing just came out, and he was like, he scrapped the other stuff, and he was like, this is what it is going to be. It's beautiful. And I think for me, that is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, because, and I know it's really niche because of the subject matter, and it's a difficult subject, and what I like about it the most is that you can really hear the notes. You're given time to kind of breathe in between each note almost. You can hear that you can hear the love and the fear, and the hope, in every single note. And it's just incredible. Like there are pieces on there that genuinely still make me cry all these years later. And I emailed John recently, and he said that he went back only a few weeks ago and re-listened to it, and he said, I still find it really difficult to listen to for something that he created that is so beautiful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And that's exactly what I've sort of been trying to work with, like, because that is my approach to composing music. That's sort of the only way I know how. But it's also really hard to do that like professionally, and like somebody pays you to do that on a deadline. So I've been struggling a lot with trying to find some sort of process to do that, like on a professional sort of basis.
And have you then, like, since you've been doing this and you've done so many different games, now that your process has changed? Because you did mention that your process you were trying something new this time, but do you think it's changed over time to something that old you wouldn't even recognize?
I think the process has changed in terms of like that I give myself that time in the beginning and try to like stay calm, and because my first games I was more, I don't know, less confident and scared that I wouldn't be able to make it and come up with all this music, and like really stressed to get results, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing for composers. You really do want to do well. You want to show them that you're a good hire almost. And
because that's a part of it. Strangely, you like do all of this deep emotional personal stuff, but it's also a profession, and you have to make those very, very like contrasting worlds to
it's kind of like almost saying, oh, here's my heart in my sleeve, please like me.
And here's the invoice. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah, totally. Because there's nothing, and I know it from being music consultants on Truffle Pigs, there's nothing more kind of worrying than doing all this work and then presenting to someone and they go, ugh.
Oh, yeah. You don't want that to happen. But I say that's what's changed mostly, that I try to give myself that time early to really, because I also don't want to get like too concrete when I compose. I think I want it to be like an intuitive process. But I also need precision. So that's the hard part, to try to sort of align your intuition into writing what you want it to write. Without getting, because if I like stare at like I don't know, a specific level, a specific context, and like try to compose for that, I often end up just like, no, this won't fit, no, this won't fit, no, this won't fit. I just get stuck, and I need to like step back away from that and just let it happen. But the hard part is making sure that what happens will work in this context.
Yeah.
So that's a very like specific skill, I suppose, that I'm still figuring out.
Yeah, and I think we all do as kind of as our journey goes, we're trying to figure things out, and we get better at doing certain things, or get better at doing what we're doing, really, you know. And that's the fun part, I think, you know, because you're learning more, you know, and you're learning things that you really want to, rather than things that you're having to, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, I know you mentioned about you had to ditch some music for the project, and I know you're saying how difficult it is. Do you kind of save those and use and like hope to use them at a future date in something else, or do you just kind of save them or not save them?
I save them. I save everything. I have a huge archive of stuff. I'm yet to like reuse anything in a game, but I
Or
recently
anything?
started to.
Yeah.
I have like lots of like personal stuff, or like passion projects, as you call it. With I recently looked through some of that archives with like songs I did like 10 years ago or something, and like some of these are actually pretty good. And we started with my band to rehearse some of those things, and hopefully we'll make something of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I save everything.
Yeah. It's always nice to hear different versions of songs that you know. Like
Oh yeah.
my like Jessica Curry, she released like a short album of unreleased tracks, and tracks that you know that we all know, that just different versions of them. That was really interesting to listen to, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
you should do
Yeah, I've
that
been
in the future.
thinking of doing. Yeah. I've been thinking about doing like piano solo versions of stuff.
Oh wow,
I think that could be.
that would be really lovely.
Yeah, but because it sort of
Skogan.
brings out like the core of the tune, like what
Yeah.
happens if you like do a completely different instrumentation, what is like still there.
Hmm.
It sort of
Yeah.
puts light on that.
It's funny because I still listen to the Fia soundtrack. And as you know, Skogan is my favorite. I absolutely love that piece. I don't know what it is about it. It's just something that really resonates with me. You know,
Yeah.
do you get that with kind of the stuff that you do, that you have like almost a favorite child on the album?
Yeah, for sure.
You do.
Or it's often some of the stuff I feel has like very clearly emerged from a sort of, I don't know, like a place of truth, or
Mm. We
or
have a
like
visitor.
hello, which one it is?
This is Frida,
Ah,
the quiet one.
Frida. Oh, nice. I was saying, yeah. So some tunes, like Skogen is definitely one of them.
Mm.
I sort of felt that it's like wrote itself, sort of.
Hmm.
Like you told me with this guy writing for Florence, was it? No, it's the other game. Oh, whatever. That is sort of, it feels like it already exists, and you sort of find
Hmm.
it and put it down rather than come up with it. And
Yeah.
and when that happens, it feels like they are. I mean, some tracks feel like you put down a lot of work, and
Hmm.
eventually it works out and sounds good. And I'm not sure if you can like tell the difference afterwards, but to me, some tracks have that sort of more magic
Magic.
component to them.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a couple of
definitely.
those in the Wavetale soundtrack as well.
I shall find them.
Please do, please do. Yeah, it would
Absolutely.
be really nice if you get back and see if
Yeah,
you can
I'm quite good at that
see.
game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Have you played the game?
Not yet, not yet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's definitely on the list. The
Yeah.
It's funny because I've had that before where I got sent the soundtrack for Everybody Gone to the Rapture about 6 weeks before it came out, and I
Mm.
listened to it, and there were two tracks that made me cry, genuinely
Mm.
made me cry.
Yeah.
And then I played the game, and there are two parts in that game. Well, actually, there's a few more. But the two major parts in the game where the situation, what you're seeing, experiencing, made me cry, and it was the parts with those two pieces of music.
Yeah.
Incidentally, yeah, it's something I need to play actually again because it's one of my favorite games of all time, I think, and soundtracks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just thought that I should replay it as well. It was years and years ago I played it.
It's really funny because I still think about it to this day. There's a moment in it. There's a couple of moments in it, but the first one that I experienced was right at the very beginning, um, where you're going up the steps to the church, and you can hear the priest, and he's basically questioning his faith,
Oh yeah.
and he's crying, he's upset, and that's really hard to listen to somebody who, you know, feels so deeply that they become someone who is like, you know, a priest, and then to sit and question his whole belief system, you know, that's harsh listening, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's amazing, you know, it
Yeah.
really is amazing to be able to kind of produce something like that, and then to have the soundtrack that bloody good, you know.
Yeah.
That
That
soundtrack
definitely
was
helps.
for 5 years. It was my top listened to album every year on Spotify. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like a musical hug almost, and it's kind of the safe space that you go back to. I've got quite a lot of albums like that, um, where you go back and you listen to and or pieces like Skogan, where it's just your favorite thing to listen to. You know, headphones on, music on. I am happy. You know.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing that music can do that.
yeah, definitely. You know, and I think music can do a lot of different things. You know, it can make you cry, it can make you smile, it can make you do loads of different things. And I think that's the real beauty of it. And I always say to people that, you know, when I talk to them about the podcast or talk to them about, you know, video game music, you can almost see them glaze over sometimes. And I'm always like, look, just listen to this. And I give them a playlist. And I'm saying you don't have to, you know, play games to appreciate the music. Like my other half hates games, doesn't game, will not. I was sat playing a game last week. I won't tell you which one because it's a bit rude. Not the game, but I just
Okay.
what am I to say? He said he was sat watching, and he said, "That's a really nice soundtrack. It's a shame about the game."
Oh,
The
yeah.
soundtrack is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, but that can really be. I have a few games that I feel that about. Like this soundtrack really saves this game, sort of. Or the best thing
Yeah,
about this game is the soundtrack.
or makes it, you know.
Yeah. I
Totally.
mean, in best worlds, there's this sort of effect where both of them enhances the other, and it becomes like
Mm.
more than the sum of the parts kind of thing.
Journey, a classic
Journey, yeah,
example.
definitely.
Yeah.
And there's probably
Ori, both Oris.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody's gone through the rapture, of course.
Everyone's gone to the Rapture, Horizon Forbidden West,
Yeah.
God of War, actually. The
Oh
new
yeah,
God
I
of
haven't
War.
played those. They're too long for me. I don't have that kind of time.
Hey, I put 215 hours in so far
Oh my God.
to Elden Ring.
Yeah. Elden Ring is also one of those that I don't want to get that involved in a game that it seems that everybody is getting.
It's fantastic though, and I never thought I would be that invested in it. And I'm
Yeah.
on New Game Plus. You know, it's the game that me and my best friend play the
Mm,
most. You know, we play
mm,
that religiously now.
mm,
Um,
mm.
it's kind of like just it's the gaming happy place almost. You know,
Mm.
so a lot of
Yeah.
good memories from it, and it saved me to a degree.
Mm.
Because obviously we've had all these lockdowns, and you know, I found that was really
Oh yeah.
difficult, and you know, everybody did. Um,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people found a lot of solace in things like Animal Crossing, you know,
Mm. Yeah.
because it was something to kind of pour yourself into while all this madness was going on. It still is to a degree, but I think that's a really important thing that we recognize in games is that they're a solace as well as a source of amusement. It's how I kind of chill out on an evening. I'll come home and play PlayStation for half an hour or an hour, or Xbox. That's just, and if it has a great soundtrack, well, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
So with Wavetale out now, are you working on anything at the moment or anything in the kind of pipeline?
Yeah. I'm working on 2 game projects. Not with the soundtrack though. For a change, I'm doing sound design for one, and I'm an audio director for one. It sort of came from I got a daughter a year ago, and like sort of felt that I didn't want to go into one of those big composing projects just before that happened, because like I don't know what life is gonna be after, and I don't want to like spend all of my sort of energy on that. Yeah, and I wanted to make sure that I have any left for family life. So I actually chose to focus on one of these more like sound design is more of a job. You can go and do the work and you can get home and sort of forget about it. But I get so devoured by these composing projects, and I didn't really want that to happen this year. So but I have some other musical, like non-game musical projects going on that will come out probably in 2023.
I find it funny that it amazes me, and I think it's phenomenal that composers like yourself can just go from game to game to game to game to game to game and just never seem to stop. I genuinely don't know how people do that.
Me neither. I see some CVs of people about they did like 5 games this year. How do they do that? And they're all really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's if they do make it or if it breaks down eventually and there's burnout and there's I don't know.
Yeah, I think as well. I think I've spoken to quite a few people and they've said like they kind of things have shifted slightly since the whole pandemic, and family life has become quite a lot more important and stuff like that. And that's great, but people still need to work, and there's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you're hoping for a busy 2023, but not too busy.
Yeah. I'll be starting with being full-time parental leave actually until August.
Yeah.
So, wow. So that's going to be. It feels like really nice to be with my kid that much, but it also feels really strange to just sort of shut off that part of my brain, because I'm used to working quite a lot. So we'll see how that goes, but and then I'll be continuing some stuff on those projects that I'm working on right now next fall, and then we'll see.
I mean, that's a long time till August.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
Yep.
But you'll be fine.
Probably. We'll see. My spouse is free like 1 day a week, so as I have like 3 days weekends to sort of get my sanity back if needed.
Get outside on your own.
Yeah.
And and she is so young.
Yeah, 1 year.
Wow. Well, hopefully 2023 will be a busy one for you in a nice way. Lots more stuff coming out, and lots more stuff coming in for you.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of like open spaces when I get back to work, and looking forward to see what that might.
So I have one final question for you, and this is going to be a hard one, possibly.
Yes.
Is there a gaming soundtrack in the last year that you've seen and heard and just gone, wow?
That's a good question. I've sort of been out of the loop this last year because
you've been a bit busy.
Yes, but I might be biased, but there was one game that was released like a year ago. But it was like December last year. It's called The Gunk, and I think you did an interview with Oscar
Yes, yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
probably very biased because he is one of my best friends, but I
I
think that soundtrack is
love that soundtrack.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's a bit
absolutely
like
amazing.
it's amazing. It's sometimes a bit like hard to reach because it's like almost 3 hours long or something.
Mhm.
So
I
it's
love it.
sort of
Absolutely love it.
I think
It's so clever.
it's so clever, and there's so much like depth, like in like whichever of these 3 hours of music, like whenever you put it on, there's like so
Yeah,
complex soundscapes. There's so much going on all the time, and
and
these
it's
beautiful melodies, and
yeah,
uh,
and it's a really good game. I even said to Oscar last week that it needs to come out on vinyl. It needs to come out on
yeah,
vinyl.
yeah. It'll be a triple vinyl or something. I
So
think
good.
we talked about that at some point. It was like if we're gonna put all of this in, it's going to be like a quadruple vinyl, which would cost like 70 pounds or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, you know, we would definitely pay that. It's funny
Yeah.
because I was only mentioning it yesterday that I saw it the other day. The Okami box set now. This is like it's become this big thing now.
Mm.
Um, to buy it today, it would be £700. £700.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. But it does sort of a collector's edition, exclusive,
Yeah,
limited.
yeah. And I've got one
Yeah.
downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
I
I'm not surprised.
couldn't. I don't think I could ever let it go. I couldn't live with myself.
No,
It's just a
no.
thing of absolute beauty.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
is.
Sure is. That's a very special game and soundtrack.
Yeah, definitely. And again, yeah, it's something that kind of the game and the soundtrack have kind of melded together and become this
Yeah. Yeah.
massive thing,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And they just kind of complement one another, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just
Sure
want to
is.
say massive thank you for being part of the show again.
Yeah, massive thank you for having me for the third
Oh,
time. I'm so glad and honored to be the first.
anytime. And good luck with Wavetale and good luck with being a dad this year. That's going to be
Thank
your
you.
biggest thing to do.
Probably, yeah.
And oh, last thing, but is definitely and have a lovely new year.
Oh, yes, of course. You too.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.